time is now 10:02. The chair recognizes that a quorum of the Pension Review Board is present, and the meeting will now come to order. Ashley Rendon, can you please take attendance?
Stephanie Lighty.
Present.
Keith Brainerd.
Here.
Andrew Cable.
Here.
Marcia Dush.
Here.
Rosie Farina Strauss. Josh McGee.
Here.
Ernest Richards.
Present.
Thank you. Moving on to item 3 on today's agenda. First, we will have my introductory remarks. Today is my first day as chair of the Pension Review Board. So for that, it's truly an honor that I recognize and am humbled by the confidence that's been placed in me by Governor Abbott, and for that I am thankful. And I'm also thankful for the guidance and leadership that Josh has provided to this board for the last 3.5 years. I truly believe that Josh has provided invaluable expertise and guidance to both the board, the agency, the pension funds, and pensioners of the state. And for that, we're all grateful. So thank you. As I assume my role of chair on a going forward basis, I would like to see a future which looks very much like our recent past. I think that the intensive reviews that the boards have been undertaking have provided lots of good, valuable guidance both to the funds that have been subject to the reviews and also for funds that can benefit from the information that has come out of those reviews. We've just come out of a legislative session, and through that session, and we'll talk about this a little bit more today, the agency and the board have been given additional mandates by the legislature, and so I look forward to working cooperatively with the funds, with the board, with the agency itself to implement those mandates in a way that's both open, transparent, and has good communication both between the agency and the funds of the state. I'd also like to recognize the agency itself. The agency for the last 2 years and staff have just provided wonderful work product. They've shared their expertise with the board, with the pension funds, and with the legislature. And once again, as we'll discuss later in the meeting, they were justly rewarded through the appropriation process and recognized by legislators this past session. So to staff, congratulations, job well done, and thank you. And I think that will conclude my introductory remarks. So we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is recognition of the outgoing chair. And so I'll start this item with reading of a resolution. And so we have a resolution, whereas the Texas Pension Review Board has been honored by the appointment of many distinguished citizens to serve terms amongst its membership. And whereas Josh B. McGee of Houston, Texas, was appointed as a member and chair of the Texas Pension Review Board by Governor Greg Abbott on November 30th, 2015. And whereas the Texas Pension Review Board has been highly honored to have Mr. McGee act as board chair since his appointment. And whereas in his years of service, he has provided expert guidance to the agency as board chair and as a member of the actuarial and advisory committees. And whereas he had led the agency through intensive actuarial reviews, pension funding guideline revisions, 2 interim studies resulting in legislative recommendations, and the development of the principles of retirement plan design. And whereas the members of the board believe that Mr. McGee's loyal and outstanding service to the board, the public employees, and citizens of the state deserve special recognition. Now therefore be it resolved, the Texas Pension Review Board hereby commends and expresses gratitude and appreciation to Josh B. McGee for his devoted service and leadership. So Josh, we also have a special plaque to present to you as outgoing chair, complete with your own gavel. So if you like, we can just go down. I'll present, and Keith has volunteered to be our photographer.
Yes.
We'll take a few. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
I don't know
Thank
if
you.
I'm that pretty to get that close.
Josh, we also have a resolution to
That's okay.
Thank you.
Resolution.
Thank you. Thank you.
You got your arms full. Madam Chair, if I might, I'd just like to echo the comments that were made in the resolution and your own comments. Josh, you've left this place better. Thank you. To the benefit of the board, the agency, employers in the state of Texas, public employers, and public employees. And I think we all owe you a debt of gratitude. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to?
I would like to thank Josh on behalf of the entire staff. We were honored to have you on the board, and we were very thankful for always being appreciative of the work that staff did, as well as for always supporting us on our budgetary needs. So we really appreciate that.
Josh, your confidence in holding that position made me especially feel comfortable up here in the direction of the board of directions. So I appreciate it.
Well, Josh, over the years we've become some friends, and appreciate your leadership, and you're going to be a great ambassador for this board wherever you go, and wish you all the best.
Okay. Josh, do you have any comments?
I really appreciate everything that's been said. It's been a great few years here leading this board. Very much appreciate the support of other board members. I couldn't have done it without you all taking on a lot of responsibility and moving stuff forward, wanting to get good stuff done. The legislature and legislative staff have been fantastic in working with the PRB and using the PRB as a resource that we couldn't have accomplished much without the support of legislative staff. But most importantly, the staff of the PRB itself. You guys have really increased the output of the PRB, both in terms of advice to plans and work with the legislature. And that's much appreciated. The work product, the quality, the dedication has been huge, and I really appreciate that, so keep it up. The plan leadership, one thing that I've been very impressed with is in the state of Texas, the engagement of plan leadership, and the desire to make things better. I think as a whole, the community here around pensions is very strong, and I'm excited to see what everybody does going forward. I appreciate the governor giving me the opportunity to serve in this role, and I'll be following from the outside.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have consideration and discussion approval of the meetings from the January 24th, 2019 board meeting minutes. At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to suspend the reading of the minutes.
So moved.
Seconded.
The motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion for board members or any corrections to the minutes as circulated? Hearing none, there's been a motion made and seconded to suspend the reading of the minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it and the minutes will not be read. The minutes are approved as circulated. Next on the agenda is just related to some updated committee assignments. Josh, in addition to serving on the board and as chair, has also been an invaluable member to the actuarial committee. As he moves to greener pastures, we'll have a vacancy on that committee. they'll have a vacancy on that committee, and I will appoint myself to fill the vacancy on that committee. We'll leave Keith as chair of the committee. Marcia is the third member of the committee, and so the actual committee will be comprised of Keith, Marcia, and myself. Next item on the agenda is to receive reports regarding the 86th legislature regular session, and for that I call on Ashley Rendon and Mariah Miller.
Good morning, members. Mariah Miller, Research Specialist.
I'm Ashley Rendon, Management Analyst.
Behind tab 2A, you will find a summary of the pension bills that passed during the 86th session. To give a brief background, this session, the PRB followed approximately 120 pension bills that were filed between November 2018 and mid-March 2019. Throughout the session, we posted a pension bill report to our website weekly, including a history and status of each of the bills. To give you an idea of the bills which followed, we included all of the TRS and ERS bills that did not concern healthcare, bills concerning governmental defined contribution plans, and bills that may affect pensions, such as those affecting salary increases or changes to salary scales. Of the bills we followed, 17 were passed and signed by the governor or passed without signature, and are included in the summary we've provided. Today we'd like to give a brief overview of a few of those bills and answer any questions. Our first bill we are discussing is Senate Bill 2224, relating to the evaluation and reporting of, I'm so sorry, that was 322. Senate Bill 2224, which is Senator Huffman's bill relating to requiring a public retirement system to adopt a written funding policy. The bill was signed by the governor on June 4th and will become effective on September 1st. The bill did pass both houses unanimously. All public retirement systems are required to adopt a written funding policy by January 1st, 2020. The funding policy must detail the system's governing body's plan for achieving a funded ratio that is equal to or greater than 100%. A copy of the policy and any change is required to be submitted to the system sponsor and the PRB, no later than the 31st day after the date the policy or change has been adopted. The bill came from our interim study on funding policies and the recommendation to the legislator. And currently the PRB is working on creating guidance to help systems create their written funding policies. I can now answer any questions the board may have regarding Senate Bill 2224.
Quickly, members, this bill was sponsored in the House by Chairman Murphy. So just a quick note there.
Okay, seeing no questions, I'm going to move to Senate Bill 322. Senate Bill 322 is relating to the evaluation and reporting of investment practices and performance of certain public retirement systems. This bill is also from Senator Huffman. It was signed by the governor on June 10th, 2019, and became effective immediately. This bill has two components. The first component is the fee disclosures. Public retirement systems are required to include in their annual financial report a listing by asset class of all direct and indirect commissions and fees paid by the retirement system for the sale, purchase, or management of the system's assets, and to provide the names of the investment managers engaged by the retirement system. The bill also, I can now take questions regarding the fee disclosure aspect of Senate Bill 322.
Go ahead. I think we can present the report and then let the members ask any questions.
Okay, sorry.
That's fine. You can speed it up.
And so the other aspect is investment performance evaluation. A public retirement system shall select an independent firm to evaluate the appropriateness, adequacy, and effectiveness of the retirement system's investment practices and performance to make recommendations for improving the retirement system's investment policies, procedures, and practices. Systems with greater than 100 million in assets must conduct investment performance evaluations once every 3 years. Systems with greater than 30 million in assets or equal to 30 million in assets must conduct investment performance evaluations once every 6 years. And systems with less than 30 million assets are not required to conduct any of these evaluations. A report of the first evaluation must be filed with the governing body of the system no later than May 1st, 2020. The report is due to the PRB 31 days after the date the governing body of a public retirement system receives it. Regarding the outside firm, the final version of the bill does not state that plans can use a... I'm so sorry. Regarding the outside firm, the final version of the bill doesn't state that plans can use a firm for this evaluation as long as the firm does not currently manage the plan's assets.
Members, essentially, systems, if they have independent in-house consultants, they would be able to use those consultants. Do you have any questions, members? If not, we'll move on.
I have a question.
Sure.
I have a question, please. Do you recall what the votes were? Were they unanimous like the other one?
Do you want?
They were not, but I don't recall.
Okay, not unanimous.
Right.
And do you recall opposition that was expressed in committee?
The concern that the committee heard from the retirement systems was essentially with regards to cost to go out and hire an outside firm to conduct the evaluation, the independent performance evaluation. And it's our understanding that the bill authors worked with the systems and included language to allow retirement systems to use their independent in-house investment consultants.
Thank you.
Great. So I'll take you through the second two bills that we wanted to cover today in more detail. So the next bill is Senate Bill 12. That was by Senator Huffman, and it is concerning the teachers' retirement system. The bill was signed by the governor on June 10th and became effective immediately. So that bill has two pieces. The first is phased-in contributions. The bill increases contributions for members, employer, and employers who do not contribute to Social Security. So from fiscal year 2020 through 2025, those three contributors incrementally increase to ultimately the member increases from in 2022 would be from 7.7 to 8%, and then 8.25% by 2024. The employer in 2020 is 7.5, would increase from 6.8 to 7.5%, and then through 2024 on to 8.25%. And then those employers not contributing to Social Security would increase from its current is 1.5%. In 2021 would begin increasing by 0.1% to ultimately in 2025 be 2%. And then the second part of this bill is providing a one-time increase supplemental payment to certain annuitants with a cap of $2,000. And so for the last bill that we wanted to cover today in more detail is House Bill 2763, and that was by Representative Flynn, and it is relating to the police pension fund in certain municipalities, which concerns Galveston employees' retirement plan for police. It was signed by the governor on June 14th and became effective immediately. Members, if you would recall, the PRB reviewed this plan in the first round of its 2018 intensive actuarial reviews. During that process, and since its publication in January of 2018, both the plan and the city attended several of our meetings and to answer questions during the review process, and also provided testimony and updates of the status of their negotiations. So the final bill enacted substantially changes the plan statute, and I wanted to go through a few of the major changes. And so you will find in the bill, it contains many of the elements the board recommended within its review, as well as throughout our meetings. And so most notably, there's a funding policy with a closed layered 30-year amortization period, a risk-sharing mechanism to share the burden of future unexpected costs. The most immediate change that you'll see is that the city contribution is increased from its 14.83%. It's set in statute at 18%. The employees will remain at 12%, and that's their current rate. Both of these are set until 2025. So after 2025, they can be modified. As I mentioned about the risk-sharing mechanism, the bill has an ADC component, so the actuarially determined contribution. If after January 1st, 2025, the actuarial valuation recommends an ADC rate that exceeds the combined contribution of the member and the city, that difference will be split 50-50 between the member and the city. They also made several governance changes, and probably the most notable is to board composition. And so the board is increased to 8 members from 7, and it includes representatives, 4 representatives that would be police or selected by the members, and then 4 representatives selected by the city.
Madam Chairman, this seems like an extraordinary bill in certain respects. Is there another board, public board in Texas that defines qualifications for trustees like this?
Yes, Dallas Police and Fire Board has qualification definitions for its trustees as well, training requirements and background requirements.
This is the only one besides Dallas Police that we recall?
I believe one of the Houston plans might have had some elements of this as well.
There are other systems. We can certainly research and provide that information.
Yeah, for the next meeting, that would be helpful. Also, it would be helpful to know what other plans require specifically the contribution pursuant to the actuarially determined rate. I think those 2 elements of this are notable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, do you have any other questions regarding the ledge report?
Thank you.
For the next item on the agenda, we'll turn to Anu to give us a report on the agency's budget appropriations for fiscal years 2020 and 2021.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, behind tab B of your meeting packet, we have included our bill pattern, the agency's bill pattern from the General Appropriations Act, and this is behind tab 2B, as well as we have included a summary table to outline the additional appropriation the agency received in the 86th session. We are very appreciative of the support that we received from the legislature. We received all of our exceptional items requests, and more notably, the request we made for retaining the critical positions we have at the agency. We also received, we had a contingency rider for SB 322. We had provided a fiscal note for it. So we received funding for that as well as an additional FTE, and we will be hiring an investment analyst to assist the agency and the board to implement the new requirements under Senate Bill 322. And we are, of course, very thankful to the board for their support when we made the budget request, and we cannot be thankful enough to the legislature. Underfunding is, budgetary limitations is something we have been struggling with over the years, and we can finally say that we would be able to address the needs that the agency has to be able to retain and recruit in the future qualified individuals to serve the board, as well as provide effective implementation of the statutory requirements and provide assistance to our retirement systems. Members, do you have any questions?
Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda, we'll also hear from Manu concerning revisions to the government code.
Sure. Members, with the new requirements under SB 322 as well as SB 2224, we will be updating our government code booklet, the mini pastel colored booklet that we have been publishing in-house. So that's just an FYI that we will be publishing those as soon as possible, reflecting all the changes that were made to Chapter 802 during this session.
Okay, next we will talk about pension review board rule reviews, which will also be addressed by Anu.
Thank you. Members, behind tab 2C in your packet, we have included a revised rule review plan. Every state agency under the government code is required to review its administrative rules once every 4 years, and is also required to adopt a plan. Currently, what we have included in the meeting packet is a proposed revised rule review plan, which, if approved by the board, will be posted in the Texas Register. The idea behind the revised plan is, since we now have a significant amount of minimum educational training related rules, so we go back, and as we review the rules, we review all of them together in one fell swoop. And so the first step in the process would be to post the revised plan in Texas Register, and then the staff will start conducting the review, essentially to analyze the need for readoption of the current rules, or revision or repeal of any obsolete rules. Staff will come back to the October meeting with proposed rule reviews, and once we have the board's blessing, we will go ahead and post it in the Texas Register to receive public comments. And in the revised plan, we have tracked the changes for you to look at, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Madam Chairman, Anu, are there no rules right now? And we'll be crafting them, or are we revising the existing rules?
We will be reviewing, and if need be, revising or tweaking the existing rules. So we have rules on the books right now. The ones that are not underlined are the current rules. This is the rule review plan. And so we are reflecting the rules that we currently have on the books. So it relates to the general provisions, including the purpose and requirements of the rules, as well as the MET rules that the board adopted, I believe, back in 2013.
Thank you. That was my specific question, was the MET rules. So we do have MET rules.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we will be reviewing the MET rules in the same review schedule.
Thank you.
What's the time frame for this review?
So the process, as I understand, and Melissa, of course, can correct me if I'm wrong, once we post the proposed rule reviews in the Texas Register subsequent to the October board meeting. We will receive public comments, and we will come back to the next board meeting, which is probably is going to be sometime in January, to present any comments that we receive, as well as to present the rules that will again be finalized, and again go back and post the rules in Texas Register.
So
As
is it the whole board that's going to review it, or is there going to be a committee within the board that will review it?
for the rule review, it's going to be the whole board.
And just to clarify, board members, today you are reviewing the rule review plan, and if you adopt this rule review plan, it sets in motion the schedule you'll follow. And at the time that you adopt your rule review, you would at that same time or at a subsequent meeting propose rule changes that result from that rule review. And those changes could affect any of the rules in your current rule chapters.
So is this an action item for us today?
Yes.
Madam Chair, we had some legislation, of course, that expanded the responsibilities of the PRB in this session, so SB 322 and SB 2224 that we just heard about. Are we adopting rules around those? Is there a plan to do that?
Thank you for that question, and if it's okay, we can take up that agenda item. With regards to those new requirements, what the staff was going to propose, that given those requirements have a more imminent deadlines for the retirement systems, for the funding policy bill, the requirement is that the systems adopt the funding policies by January of 2020. Staff was going to propose that the board direct staff to work with the actuarial committee and provide guidance with regards to the funding policy requirement, as well as with regards to SB 322, which essentially has two parts to it. One is the fee disclosure requirement that systems have to now include enhanced fee information in their annual financial reports. For that particular piece of the legislation, staff is recommending to the board that we engage in rulemaking to clarify what fee disclosure, what type of fee information retirement systems would have to include, more specifically with regards to indirect fees. The second piece of the bill, which pertains to the performance review, investment performance review, given that the first go around for the review, the deadline for the systems is May of 2020, staff is recommending that again the board direct staff to work with the actuarial committee to provide guidance instead of rules, so systems can get started on conducting the investment performance evaluation. And then both for the funding policy guidance as well as for the investment performance evaluation guidance, staff will work with the actuarial committee and then come back to the full board at its October meeting to present the guidance for a final adoption. And rulemaking, of course, is a lengthier process, so with regards to fee disclosure, that would require at least 2 board meetings, as we will post the proposed rulemaking in Texas Register, receive feedback, come back to the board with the feedback, and then adopt the rules possibly. So no rulemaking for funding policy and investment performance evaluation report. However, for fee disclosure, we will be engaging in rulemaking, is what the staff is recommending. We do have a motion for adoption of the rule review plan, which essentially resets, like Melissa mentioned, the schedule for our rule review for every 4 years, starting from 2019.
Madam Chairman, I would move that the board adopt the revised rule review plan as presented and ask staff to publish the revised plan in the Texas Register.
Seconded.
A motion has been made. Oh, sorry. A motion has been made and seconded to adopt the board's revised rule plan as presented and authorize the staff to publish the revised plan in the Texas Register. Is there any board discussion? The motion has been made and seconded to adopt the board's revised plan as presented and authorize the staff to publish the revised plan in the Texas Register. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The rule review plan is adopted and the executive director may publish the revised plan in the Texas Register. And I think circling back to the discussion that Anu just had, regarding the administrative rules which will be necessary related to the new legislation, and then also the guidance that will be provided. We also have another action item which would direct staff to work with the actuarial committee to adopt the rules and or guidance as appropriate in order to implement each of those statutes. So at this time, the chair entertains.
Marcia has a comment.
Oh, sorry.
I agree with the way the staff is going to, that we will recommend that the staff work to provide both rules on fee disclosure and guidance on the investment reviews. I would personally like to see that the guidance that is considered really do some focusing on how systems choose their asset consultants and the tools that they need to do appropriate work for asset allocation. I personally would like to see that there's some guidance on setting of benchmarks by asset class, and then talk about how plans evaluate their manager selection.
We will certainly work with the actuarial committee to make sure those criteria, we elaborate on those as we provide the guidance to our members.
Thank you. So then I would like to move, are you looking for the motion?
I am looking for the motion.
I would like to move that the staff be directed to work with the actuarial committee both in developing proposed rules on fee disclosure for the implementation of SB 322, as well as working on guidance for the investment reviews associated with SB 22.
Seconded.
The motion's been made and seconded to direct staff to work with the actuarial committee to develop rules and or guidance to implement the requirements of each of the new statutes regarding the new reporting requirements made by the or enacted by the 82nd legislature. Is there any further board discussion?
Do you need it, should I have made it more broad to say, rather than just providing guidance on SB 22, but also with respect to any other legislation that has been passed?
You can do that if you believe there are other statutes that the board may need to have staff prepare rules or guidance.
And I believe there are.
So SB 322 and 2224 and any other legislation that,
Correct.
okay.
And you could amend your motion to do that.
So I'd like to amend the motion so that the staff be directed to work with the actuarial committee to provide both proposed rules and guidance associated with any of the new laws passed by the legislature.
You okay with that, Ernest?
Seconded.
Okay. I'll make sure I repeat this correctly. A motion's been made and seconded to direct staff to work with the actuarial committee to develop new rules and or guidance associated with the new laws adopted by the Texas legislature. Any further board discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next on the agenda is a report from the Actuarial Committee, and for that we call upon Keith Brainerd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would direct the members to tab 3A in your packet and ask Staff Actuary Kenny Herbold to come forward, please. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, members. My name is Kenny Herbold. I'm the Staff Actuary for the Pension Review Board. And if I can direct you to 3A, or you should already be there, I guess. I was already suggested that. I'll be relatively brief today. I would like to point out a couple of items, though, with respect to the summary of the actual evaluation report. We have approximately 13 new reports since the January board meeting, but it didn't result in a significant amount of movement. Plans shifted around a little bit, but they were relatively small comparatively, as I've noted in the past, that some of the broad numbers are moved primarily by TRS. I should note that these numbers do not reflect any changes that were made in the most recent legislative session, so the changes to TRS will most definitely have a significant impact the next time we receive their amortization or their next report. It doesn't reflect changes to Galveston Police either. And finally, Fort Worth made some changes locally. They did not have to come to the legislature for changes. That valuation, the most recent valuation with those changes, has not been reflected in this report either. There is some additional discussion that you'll see later on with respect to the funding soundness restoration plans, but it didn't make it into this report just yet. And that's pretty much all I have to say for this one. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions regarding any of the valuation report, contribution report, or supplemental report if there's anything.
Josh, Chair. I was impressed with how far down the liability-weighted median assumed return came with the TRS change. I think that's reflective of how important that change is for the fiscal health of that plan and for funding generally. And I think it's a great service to the state that the board moved down before the legislative session, and that fed right into the legislation. They got more funding for TRS. I think pension boards around the state should notice how that went. The pension boards asking for appropriate funding is the way you get appropriate funding. It's not working with the sponsoring government to keep those rates high so that you don't break the budget. It's saying what you need and then working with the governments to make it happen. So kudos to the TRS board for making a change that was difficult for them but led directly to increased funding. Kenny, do you know the resultant amortization period for TRS based on the legislation?
I don't know that off the top of my head. Do you remember any?
I think it's being projected to go under.
Yeah, you're correct.
Right,
It was projected to come down to about 30 years. So they brought it down. I believe the intent of the legislation was to make it actuarially sound, and so yes, they did bring it down to below 31 years.
So 87 down to less than 30 at a much lower discount rate. Big movement. So that's a very positive development.
Yeah, I think they had to get below 31 to provide the benefit adjustment. Another observation is that these changes in these numbers reflect just how big TRS is relative to the rest of the plans in the state. They can really make such a substantial difference through that. Thank you. Other questions on the actuarial evaluation report? Thank you, Kenny. I would ask Brian Burnham to come forward and speak with us about reporting and compliance and non-compliance. And that would be under tab 3B, members, of your packet.
Good morning, members. I am Brian Burnham, and I'm here to talk to you about tab 3B. The first part of tab 3B is a summary of all the compliance numbers. Currently we have 99 plans and 91 out of the 99 are currently compliant. 2 of those 8 that are non-compliant are over 60 days non-compliant. We're working with everybody, not just the ones that are 60 days, but the 6 remaining others that were due. Most of them were due 9/30. Well, they have a 9/30 fiscal year end date, so they were due at the end of April. So they are closely approaching their 60-day non-compliant date at the end of this month. So we are working diligently to try to get everybody's reports in. If you look at the total net assets, it has increased by roughly 90 million since last board meeting in January. And the amortization periods movement has been very, very slight. The biggest one of note is that we do have one more plan with an amortization period in the infinite category. The next page will be the list of the plans that are over 60 days non-compliant currently. These 2 plans are the Nacogdoches County Hospital District Retirement Plan and Northeast Medical Center Hospital Retirement Plan. If you'll remember, Northeast Medical was on this list in the past for multiple occasions. We got them off the list finally for 2017, but they're back on this time. Both of these plans, the reasoning they're on this list is the same. They gave us sponsor audits, but the requirements from the legislature is that every plan needs to do independent annual financial reports, and so we are working with these plans to give us independent reports away from just the sponsoring entities audits. The next pages are lists of the total net assets breaked out by every single one of the 99 plans in our state. As you can see, it's very much dominated by TRS, as Keith pointed out during Kenny's presentation. And lastly, I have sample letters of the letters that we sent to the plan sponsors of Nacogdoches Memorial Hospital and Northeast Medical Center to let their sponsors know of their non-compliance status. Are there any questions?
Questions for Mr. Burnham?
I just wanted to refer to the total net assets page. Off the top of your head, or I think somebody else might know, because we're talking about these new investment studies, investment reviews that have to be done, how many are above 100 million, how many are between 30 and 100, and how many are below 30 million?
I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I'm fairly certain that we did check this, and I believe it's roughly about 60 of our 90 plans are going to be contingent on the effects of over 30 million or more. It might even be more than that. As you can see, we don't get under the $30 million threshold until around the 3rd out of the 4th page. So it's at least over 60 to 70% of our plans are going to be contingent on this new requirement.
Roughly 2/3.
Yeah.
Other questions for Mr. Burnham? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would ask Reese Freeman to speak with us about the Funding Soundness Restoration Plan deployment. And that would be under tab 3C of your packet. Welcome, Reese.
Thank you. Good morning, members. I'm Reese Freeman, Financial Analyst with the Pension Review Board. On the first page of the Funding Soundness Restoration Plan report is the summary of the contribution increases and benefit changes made by the Fort Worth Employees Retirement Fund. As explained in the comments, there is also an automatic risk-sharing plan included in the plan changes should the fund not achieve its target amortization period by 2022. We have included a more detailed list of the plan changes in your packet right after the FSRP report. On the next page, we have the systems immediately subject to an FSRP. You'll see that 4 plans, revised FSRPs, are past due. University Park Fire has notified the PRB of a prospective change in the city's contribution rate to a 30-year ADC rate. We have confirmed that the city's proposed 2019 budget included contribution increases. However, we have not received a formal FSRP letter nor analysis of the actual effects of the contribution change from the plan. Harlingen Fire sent the PRB a plan amendment in early June detailing changes that should fulfill its FSRP requirement, but we have not received analysis of the effects of those changes, so the revised FSRP has not yet been officially reviewed. In March, Wichita Falls Fire provided us with a plan amendment ballot on which its members would be voting. We received an update in April stating that their FSRP would hopefully be revised in June, but we have not received the revised FSRP from the plan. Irving Fire submitted an update in April regarding the plan's difficulty finding a new actuary and investment consultant. As of April 17th, Irving Fire had retained Foster & Foster as its actuary, but was still in the process of interviewing investment consultants. After finishing this interview process, they will perform an experience study in order to formulate a new FSRP. The changes to the plan would then need to be voted on by active members, which is expected to occur early this summer. 2 plans have been added to this list since January, as they have submitted valuations that show amortization periods not in compliance with their original FSRPs. Midland Fire is required to revise its FSRP after submitting an AV that showed the fund's amortization period was infinite as of 12/31/2017. The amortization period increase was due to a combination of factors, including a lower investment return and payroll growth than expected, as well as changes to its actuarial assumptions. Odessa Fire is also required to revise its original FSRP, as its last AV produced an AM period of 77.5 years. The amortization period increase was due mainly to low investment returns, unfavorable retirement experience, and lower payroll growth than expected. On the next page, you'll see systems at risk of...
Reese,
Yes.
may I stop you for one moment, please? What action does staff take in the face of these funds that have not responded to the due dates?
We reach out to them via email and phone and talk to them and discuss their plans going forward.
And did you indicate that we've heard from all of them?
Yes, we have.
Thank you.
And members, generally speaking, the retirement systems themselves are good about reaching out to us, keeping us posted on their process and what they're working on with regards to an FSRP or a revised FSRP.
Thank you.
On the next page, you'll see the systems at risk of an FSRP list. The only addition to this table since January was Laredo Fire, which was added due to an amortization period above 40 years in its latest AV. Because the system performs valuations every other year, if its next AV shows an AM period greater than 40 years, it will be required to formulate an FSRP. On the next page, we have the progress report on previously submitted FSRP. Shown here is a list of plans working towards their 40-year AM period requirement. We have added Fort Worth employees with a reported post-FSRP AM period of 44 years.
And this review, this incorporates the changes that have just been approved?
Yes, it does. But that amortization period has not been confirmed by our staff actuary yet. And while no FSRP plans have submitted an AV with an amortization period of less than 40 years since the last board meeting, on the last page is the running list of all systems that have completed their FSRP requirement. This list will be included in all future FSRP reports.
Reese, on Fort Worth,
Right.
they had reforms. Everybody agreed on the reforms, but it still doesn't get them under the threshold. So presumably they're going to continue to work on changes needed to get them under the threshold. Is that our understanding?
They have a risk sharing, actually after the FSRP report, there's a list, there's a breakdown of all their changes, and they have a risk sharing plan. If by 2022 they don't have an AM period of 27 years, they will increase contributions to the ADC rate, and if the maximum contribution allowed does not meet the ADC rate, then they will look into benefit changes.
So we wait 2 or 3 years to see how it plays out.
Exactly.
Thank you.
On the FSRP, they need to get under 40 years by the goal year.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes. That's
Okay.
correct. So in that sense, they are compliant with the FSRP.
Can I add one additional thing back on Fort Worth? I think we're seeing a little bit of a trend here where plans and their sponsors are being very clear about what their goal is and specifically what will happen if they don't meet their goal. That comes directly from the recommendations of the PRB. I think that's really, really important, defining where you're trying to get and specifically what actions will be taken once if you don't meet that goal. Makes it a lot less messy if you get to that point, and you don't really know what's going on, or you have not quite met that goal. So I would encourage the PRB staff, the board, to continue to put pressure on plans to be very explicit about where they're trying to get and defining actions that would happen thereafter.
Thank you.
After the FSRP report is our full summary of Fort Worth employees' plan changes, which details the contribution increases, benefit changes, and the risk-sharing plan adopted by the system. And following that is the FSRP letter from the City of Fort Worth. Unless there are any questions, that concludes my report.
Reese, thank you. I have a question for you or Anu. There was legislation this session that would have changed the threshold for the FSRP, is that right?
That's correct. The bill was filed by Representative Flynn.
And that would have brought the FSRP standard down to 30 years from 40?
Correct.
Did it go anywhere?
It was laid out in the committee, however, it did not make it out of the committee.
Was there testimony in opposition to that bill?
We did not know. There wasn't any opposition.
Thank you. Thank you, Reese. I'd like Anu to address the Public Pension Data Center status.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. This is a quick update to let the members know that the data center was published in February of this year and was very well received by the legislature. We are very proud of the work that we put in, as well as the resulting dashboard that we created. We, of course, focused hard on the front end of the dashboard. We are currently looking at the back end so we could bring more information to the board regarding the traffic that visits our data center, as well as the downloads that people are making. Down in the future, we will continue, as budget permits, fine-tuning the dashboard, of course, the data center, and if retirement systems have suggestions, we are always open to those, and if members have any recommendations to improve the data center, we would be happy to continue working on that. The goal here again is to make sure that the information, the data that we receive from our retirement systems, we put it on a public portal and is easily accessible both to the public as well as to the legislature.
Yeah, thank you. This really is an outstanding data resource for people who are interested in this stuff. And it's one thing to have the data, it's another thing to make it available. And y'all have made it available, and it's really a user-friendly resource. And for those who have not checked it out, I would encourage you to do so. And I want to commend the staff for their work in getting it going and keeping it going also. Thank you.
This is an excellent centralized data system. I just have a question on the plan names. Are they in alphabetical order, or how are the names?
On the data center?
Right, the names here, are they in alphabetical order, or how are they arranged?
The spreadsheet behind tab D, that's with regards to the intensive reviews, and that's organized by amortization periods.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Is that all on the data center, Anu?
Yes.
So, Kenny, come back, please, and talk about system-intensive reviews, please.
Good morning again, members. If I can direct you to tab 3D. So, Mr. Richards, this is the metrics that were established a couple of years ago to provide basically an initial look at plans when we're trying to decide who to do an intensive review of. And yes, they're sorted very similar to the actual evaluation report. So it is by amortization period in decreasing order, and then if it's the same amortization period, we're also sorting by market value of assets. So if you'll notice in the infinite plans, the largest assets are on top.
Thank you.
So there's not much to say, but since we don't see this every single board meeting, I figured I would give you a quick review. There is a key. The third page is is a key that shows you how plans are highlighted. Also, the ones that are highlighted are the worst quartile, whether that be the top or the bottom, depending on what we're looking at. And we've identified what qualifies as that particular quartile. For ADC, UAAL as a percentage of payroll growth rate, and then we've highlighted if the drop as a percentage, so the deferred retirement option balance as a percentage of their market value of assets is greater than 15%, then that is also highlighted. So we have, you'll also notice that this is dated April 29th. That's basically the point in time that staff sat down to look at which plans we wanted to review next, and so that's why there's a little bit of a difference between this and the actual evaluation report. So there's some delay between that, because that's when we sat down to look and make decisions. So the highlighting on the first page of the names, the 7 plans that are highlighted in blue, those are the ones that have been reviewed. The 2 that are highlighted in yellow, those are the plans that have been selected for the current round. So they're currently under review. Those are Odessa Firemen's Relief and Retirement Fund and Paris Firefighters Relief and Retirement Fund. The plans were, and the plans, the city, the local legislators were all notified in mid-May that they were under review, and we have been working for approximately 6 weeks at this point on those reviews. So we've notified the plans, gotten information from this at this point. Those are underway, and we anticipate presenting the reviews at the next actuarial committee meeting.
So, members, what Kenny's describing is this color coding on here of some selected metrics of the condition of these public pension plans, which I frankly find to be helpful in identifying some plans that might be facing larger challenges. And again, as he said, this serves as the basis for identifying those plans that we're going to look at more closely. Questions for Kenny?
I don't have a question, but I would just make a comment. I think one thing that's particularly interesting on these 2 pages is in the columns very close to the right side of the page, the non-investment cash flow as a percentage of future normal, what is that, as a percentage of?
That's a fiduciary net position. So it's from the
net position. So what I'm interpreting this is that anything with a negative number is meaning that more benefits are going out than cash is coming in.
Correct.
So almost all of the plans on both pages have negative non-investment cash flow, which means that these plans need to have investment returns in order to, meet benefit payments.
Absolutely, yes.
And I think that's a really important thing to understand about how you have to plan for asset allocation.
Correct, yes. It's particularly important when you are not fully funded and you're trying to make up additional, cover that unfunded accrued liability as well.
That's right.
Other questions for Kenny? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that concludes the actuarial committee report.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from the Education and Research Committee, and for that I call on Judge Cable.
Madam Chair, if I could call on Joey Evans, he could come up here and enlighten us. I think there was also a question by the board as to the utilization of our MET hours. I think he's going to enlighten us on that. Thank you, Joey.
Good morning, members. I'm Joey Evans, Program Specialist for the Pension Review Board. If you could turn to tab 4A in your packet, you'll find the MET Compliance Report. The compliance report shows the system submission of required MET reporting. There are currently 86 compliant plans and 2 non-compliant. Both systems are over the 60-day threshold. I do have an update regarding Greenville Fire. Since publishing the packet, they have turned in their PRB 2000 and they are now compliant. And that concludes the MET compliance report unless there are any questions.
Thank you.
All right, for the next report, I'll ask you to turn to tab 4B. At the January meeting, the board requested the percentage of participants taking the PRB online courses compared to attending training from other MET sponsors. First, I will tell you a little bit of how we compiled the data. The time frame used is from the beginning of 2017, when all 7 PRB online courses became available, to present. Also, the data shows the number of participants that took training from only one provider. There were a small percentage of participants that completed a combination of PRB, retirement system, and/or other MET sponsor training that were not included in this analysis, but the percentage would not have significantly changed the results. The table layout is provider, sponsor, core, and continuing education. First, I'll talk about the core column. 68% of participants received training from the PRB for core training, 4% from retirement systems, and 28% from other sponsors. We broke out that data for other sponsors, and 23% received training from TechSpurs and 5% from Telfra. Next is the continuing education column. 15% of participants received training from the PRB for continuing education, 14% from retirement systems, and 71% from other sponsors. We also broke this down, and 50% received training from TechSpurs, 14% from Telfra, and 7% from all our other sponsors. And that concludes the MET training utilization report, unless there are any questions.
Any questions for Joey?
Judge, Joey, could you let us know in the future which retirement systems are offering this in-house?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I want to thank the staff as usual for creating another resource for the plans. And thank y'all for y'all's hard work. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to take 847 so that I'm on. Okay. For 87. Okay. At this time, we're going to deviate a little bit from our posted agenda as it relates to the chronological orders. So we're going to move on to agenda item number 8, which is personnel matters, including the evaluation, compensation, and performance of the executive director. And for that, the board will go into closed session. So the time is now 11:09 a.m. on June 27, 2019. At this time, the Pension Review Board will go into closed section pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074 to discuss personnel matters under agenda item number 8. The board requests that all non-board members leave the room.
And make sure the recording is on. That the recording is on.
Yeah.
It's streaming.
Anna's on it.
Okay.
I'm sorry? What's that?
Lori stuff. No, nothing juicy. On the record.
Do you have a card?
I don't have a card, but I can email you.
You would?
Yeah. My personal email is the same. Yeah.
I'm not sure if I have that, but I may.
Have you purchased a home yet?
Yeah.
Oh, so you really...
But do you know anybody that wants to buy a home in Houston?
Yes. Oh, thank you.
Oh.
Perfect.
We're in Fayetteville.
Yes, and I'll put the certified agenda in here. Yeah.
How you doing, sir?
Thank you.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Yeah. Good to see you.
Thanks, you guys.
Still going. Okay, it's delayed though. Hold on a second.
Oh, so we were on.
Yikes.
Yeah, this is nice. That's not good. See what comes up there. It's just got a delay to it.
Hey, we were talking about rice and they were talking about camping and hiking, and that's it.
I think, would it be preferable for us to go in here?
You can do that.
I would suggest we do. Because we don't want to leave anything to chance.
Right.
Do I need any paperwork?
I don't think so.
Yes.
We're gonna go into this library.
Where all the chairs are that were back here. We'll have plenty of chairs at the president. Okay, they're just gonna move. Never seen one of those since real estate school.
Yeah. It's become a bit of a throwback.
It is. Of course.
Josh, where are you going?
I am in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Yeah, so I'm a professor at the university there. And then,
Apologize, I read it.
yeah, and then do think tank work and consulting, and it's great. That's home. It was nice to be home.
So do they pay your Social Security
Who?
at the,
Yeah.
as a professor?
The retirement plan at the university is great. They match 10%. Yeah. With Social Security.
With Social Security?
I got a choice between TIAA and Fidelity. Yeah, it's great.
Excellent. As I learn more about systems that don't participate in Social Security, I'm startled at the potential offsets.
Yeah. My wife has a school. She taught in Arkansas for 7 or 8 years, and taught in Texas for 8 years. Arkansas does. She got a professor in Texas.
Well, she's going to get.
Yep.
So you're going to Arkansas or Illinois? Arkansas. I thought Illinois. Why did I think Illinois?
I don't know, it just feels like that.
They could use it.
Okay.
I thought you were, I don't know why I thought you were.
I love New York.
They got some epic game.
Illinois, the pension problem's too bad.
Yeah, Chicago, you know.
There are nihilists up there about their pension problem. Can't do anything about it.
It is now 11:28 a.m. on June 27, 2019, and the board is now back in open session. No action was taken in closed session, but we will have an action item related to closed session. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to increase the salary of the executive director to the maximum amount enacted in the General Appropriations Act of 2019 for the position of executive director effective September 1, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion passes. We thank you for the work that you do for the agency, for the assistance that you provide to the board. We're appreciative and grateful that your contributions to the agency and to board were likewise recognized by the legislature this last session. So thank you.
Thank you so much, members. I appreciate that, and I will make sure we continue to work hard and provide the quality that the board as well as the legislature has come to expect of us.
And with that, we'll move back to agenda item number 7, and we'll receive a report from the executive director.
Thank you, members. Behind tab 5A in your meeting packet, members, we have included the 2019 evaluation of PRB's educational services. This survey was conducted partly because of the one of the performance measure reporting that we do with the LBB is to evaluate how satisfied our constituents are with the educational services we provide. We conducted this mini survey in May of this year. We sent the survey out to 333 pension system trustees, administrators, as well as our other constituents, including ledge staffers and governmental contacts. The response rate was approximately 13%. However, and historically the response rate has been lower, especially during this time of the year. We have laid out the result of the survey in this report, and the one point that I would note is with regards to the overall satisfaction with our educational services. The rating was close to 90%. which is good, but there is certainly room for improvement. One of the common comments that we received in this survey was that folks are looking for training that the PRB provides for the core MET requirements, a similar training for continuing education as well. So that's something staff is certainly considering, and in the future we'll discuss with the board options and avenues that we can start providing continuing education to our systems as well. That concludes my report on the Educational Services Survey, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Anu,
Yes.
how were the responses received? Was that online?
Yes,
All electronic?
all electronic.
Thank you.
Correct. If not, members, moving forward, I wanted to let the members know that Texper Summer Educational Forum is coming up. It's in August in Frisco, Texas. Stephanie and I are presenting at that forum. And if y'all are interested, to please let us know, and we will make sure to make arrangements for you to attend the conference.
How do we let you know? By phone call, written notice, or what?
You can call me and let me know, or send an email, whatever is convenient for you.
All right.
Yep.
Smoke signals.
So at this time, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the attendance of interested board members at the 2019 Summer Educational Forum.
So moved.
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded to approve the attendance of interested board members at the 2019 Summer Educational Forum. Is there any discussion from the board? Hearing none. A motion has been made and seconded to approve the attendance of interested board members at the 2019 Summer Educational Forum. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it.
Members, the next item behind tab 5B is our fiscal year 2019 operating budget. I just wanted to report to the board that we are on track with our 2019 budget, and that's a report showing that we have not spent any money outside the authority that was given to us by the legislature. Moving on, behind tab 5C, we have included the operating budget for fiscal year 2020, and we do have a motion for that, essentially for the board to approve the 2020 fiscal year 2020 budget for the agency. And this budget essentially mirrors the bill pattern, the General Appropriations Act bill pattern approved by the legislature.
Madam Chair, I move approval of the fiscal 2020 budget as presented.
Seconded.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the fiscal year 2020 operating budget as presented. Is there any discussion from the board? Hearing none, the motion's been made and seconded to approve the fiscal year 2020 operating budget as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion passes.
Could you reopen agenda item 4E? I just wanted to mention something. Essentially, that staff is currently conducting research and will be reaching out to the systems.
Okay. Okay. At this time, we're going to reopen agenda item 4E.
Members, I just wanted to quickly add with regards to the guidance as well as the rules for SB 322 and 2224. I neglected to mention that the staff is currently conducting research full throttle so that we come prepared to the September committee meeting for the members to consider potential proposals, as well as we will be reaching out to our retirement systems for input as we work through the research and drafting the guidance. Ideally, we would have formed a work group. However, given the systems are facing a tight deadline, we wanted to make sure we are efficient in providing the guidance as quickly as possible. Also, of course, the systems are welcome to reach out to the agency as they work through or think through these new requirements. If they have questions, that's what we are here for, to provide any technical assistance. So I just wanted to make a quick note of that for you all members and for our systems.
Thank you.
And now we'll move to agenda item number 9, a call for future pension review board agenda items. Do members have any items that they'd like to see on the next board agenda?
Well, I don't know if this is a future agenda item or not, but we did receive an invitation from the Texas County District Retirement System. And can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Unfortunately, that's not on.
Okay.
I can certainly.
Sure.
Moving on to agenda item number 10, the date and location for the next pension review board meeting. The next pension review board meeting is scheduled for Thursday, October 17th, 2019. And I think the location will be to be determined but announced prior to the meeting. And also we will have some actuarial committee meetings this fall. The first actuarial committee meeting will be September 19th, and that will be followed by a second meeting in November, tentatively scheduled for November 21st.
The September meeting will be split.
Okay. And we've also just, I don't know that it has been set yet, but because of the new administrative rules and guidance that staff will work with the committee on, we are talking about splitting the September 19th meeting into a 2-day meeting. We would meet the afternoon of the first day and then the morning of the second day to accommodate anyone who was traveling from out of town, but also not to have all of those items set forth on the same day. So once again, when that is finalized, the agenda will be posted for everyone to see which items will be taken, either in the morning or afternoon session for that meeting. Okay, at this time, we'll open up for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that has any additional comments that they'd like to present to the board?
Is it possible to comment on Senate Bill 322?
Absolutely.
Andy Pareto from Sage Advisory.
Please.
I think Senate Bill 322 is a great opportunity for the plans, the 65 plans that are greater than $30 million, for them to have an independent evaluation of their holistic approach to their investment strategy. However, I think not having an independent consultant, I think the word independent consultant is kind of a misnomer, and I think for a real evaluation, you need to have somebody on an outside view looking in. Otherwise, it's just a self-report card of how they've been doing. So I would advise with your guys' leadership, I know the bill stated that there was the ability to allow for the consultants that are currently affiliated with the plans to invest or to be that consultant. However, I think with your guys' guidance, I'd highly recommend you consider making some wording as a best practice to allow for an independent firm to come and look at that company, or excuse me, that retirement plan. If you look at the cost, the administrative expenses through a plan, I think it would not be cost prohibitive. If you look at what the current fees that are associated with those plans are, I think it would be value added for all stakeholders involved. So I hope you guys consider that when you guys are kind of documenting how this is going to go forward, because I think it's a great opportunity for all of Texas. And that's all I have. Thank you.
I'm sorry, who are you with?
I was Sage Advisory.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other public comment? Okay. If there's no further business and no objection, the chair moves to adjourn this meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Meeting is adjourned.
Good.